Yo guys, welcome back to another Uncouth Robe review. Today we are going to be reviewing none other than Final Assembly by Dennis M. Myers. This is book one of the Rise of the Automated Empire series. The author, Mr. Dennis M. Myers, was kind enough to actually send this to me. And then I did take the time to read it, and I told him I'd give you guys a review for it. This is, I believe, the first book he published, and this is the only series that he has so far written and put out there. So, in exchange for a copy of the book, I'm going to give you guys an honest review. Sadly, I didn't enjoy the book a whole lot. I mean, I enjoyed aspects of it, but without trying to bash the book, that's something I don't want to do. I'm going to give you guys my honest thoughts, give you guys parts that I did like, but also explain part of the reason that I mainly disliked this book overall. However, with all that being said, I do encourage you guys to go check out this book. I'll leave a link to where you can get it in the description below. Try it out for yourself with my reviews. Something I don't ever want you guys to feel like is because, I say that I didn't like it, that you shouldn't read it. I think that everybody should form their own opinions and try everything out for themselves. So that is what I encourage you guys to do. If you would be so kind, definitely go help out Mr. Myers, give him your thoughts, pick up the book, and I'm sure any criticism would be great, because us struggling new authors want feedback, so it'd be awesome if you guys go check them out. And without further ado, let's get into the review. All right, so what is this book about? First and foremost, Final Assembly. I almost called it by the series title, but talking specifically about this first book, it follows our main character. Her name is Dawn, and this is like a futuristic world, first and foremost, where most of humanity has branched out and are on different planets in the solar system. However, the people that live on the moon, they're like super rich pretty much, but they don't even realize it. They don't have a government, and it's sort of a utopia. There's little to no like regulation, but everybody just kind of does what they're supposed to do, and they have all of their expenses paid for, and they take it for granted. They don't even realize that their share that they have, because it's almost like different corporations and stuff, and there's like a corporation that allows them to be there. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically their life on Luna, or the moon, is worth like billions of dollars. But they don't even realize it. So if they wanted to, they could sell their life on Luna to go live somewhere else and then be super rich on whatever other planet they decide to go to. But they're on the moon. And going back to what I was saying, the main character, Dawn, she like makes like fashion stuff. She makes dresses and outfits and stuff. That's her hobby, I suppose. And also one thing she does is she goes to an aviary, because in this world there's like these, basically a theme park, if you think of like Disney World, except it's all in the sky. And of course on the moon they've got like a giant dome around the moon, so they're kind of able to like have like an atmosphere sorta in like the sky. And so she has like a pair of wings that she's able to float on. You guys can see the cover here. Things go wrong, she gets hurt, and then turns out she gets turned into a meme, because some dude crashes into her, and there's like a whole viral internet sensation kind of thing. And for some reason, this meme that gets made of her leads to her gaining popularity and gets voted to be the president of like this council that gets put together, this democratic council to sort of solve the issues that have been going on between two religious factions within their lunar society. On the flip side of things, we also follow a serial killer that is sort of orchestrating all of like these terrorist attacks, as well as like killing people, obviously, and like kidnapping them and torturing them and stuff. But he's sort of behind why these two factions are warring against each other, and it's sort of a scapegoat, sort of like to cover up what he's actually trying to do. They do have like a long-standing, not hatred, but like uncomfortability with each other, the two religious groups, and he's sort of exploiting that to his own gain. So we follow him and the sick, twisted stuff that he does some of the time. There's also another character, I believe his name's Elliot, if I remember correctly. It's been a few weeks since I've read this. And he's basically a corpo, you know. He's trying to climb the corporate ladder through like backstabbing and what have you. And lastly, we follow a guy who's basically like a mercenary. He's the leader of like a guns for hire kind of space crew, and they're traveling through space, getting hired by different corporations and stuff to take care of their opponents. So firstly, I'm going to talk about some of the things that I did actually like about the book. First and foremost, I keep saying first and foremost, my apologies. It takes on sort of like a cyberpunk kind of vibe at some points. I know I've been saying that a lot recently with a lot of the sci-fi that I read. But I mean, after playing the cyberpunk game, there is a lot of like undertones and stuff that I pick up now on various different things, just like that kind of gritty, like super advanced corporate kind of deal that you see in some sci-fi, like the big corporations trying to take over everything. I mean, which is reminiscent of our real world, but the way that it's executed in the sci-fi setting is very reminiscent of the cyberpunk genre. So there's a little bit of that in there that I pick up on, and there's just a lot of ideas that I think are interesting, like going into the backstory about, you know, the moon and how it was colonized and all the planets and stuff, how they were colonized and people moved from Earth. And we're talking hundreds of years in the past, because this is very futuristic. All of this kind of world building stuff I thought was way more interesting, actually, than the story happening. I would have liked to see, you know, maybe it's what he's working on next. I couldn't tell you. But sort of a prequel. I think that would be way cooler, having like this war, because they talk about how, you know, there's like red ice outside of the moon, which is like symbolizes all of the people that try attacking the moon and they just get messed up, and so their blood, literally the blood of their enemies, creates like crystals, like ice around the moon, and that's metal as hell. So if Mr. Myers wants to do a prequel talking about all that, I think that that would honestly be way more interesting and way cooler than what we actually got in this first book. And again, I realize that this is the first book, so it could just all be set up for what's coming. And speaking of like things that I did enjoy, I want to talk about one of the characters we follow, the serial killer. I don't want to give too much away. This isn't actually a spoiler review. This is actually a spoiler-free review for once. He was actually the most interesting character to follow. I mean, we only see his point of view, like, few and far between, because compared to the other characters, it is less, I feel like. I mean, Dawn, the actual main character, takes up the vast majority of the book, and I feel like the serial killer we get the least of. He's sort of what I imagine like a like an interlude chapter in like Stormlight Archive. He's sort of like an interlude kind of character. Um, but he's really interesting just because, I mean, he's like sick and twisted and sadistic, which, I mean, for a villain and, I mean, this kind of character, I really enjoy. Like characters like, you know, he's almost sort of like the Joker or like the Riddler, kind of. Characters like that, I just think are awesome villains, or even like the Jackal in Red Rising, um, just like that sick, twisted character who's also extremely intelligent. Um, those characters are some of my favorite villains, and we get to be in his head a little bit, and it is disgusting. And yeah, everything he does is absolutely terrible, and we don't really get too much of a reason as to why he is the way he is, but I mean, he's just sort of fun to follow, and that makes me question some things about myself. But now, I'm afraid I have to get into the things that I did not like about this book. Sadly, first and foremost is the writing style. Um, the dialogue just wasn't it for me personally, and it made it really hard to engage with the story and what was happening. Um, it made the book sort of feel like a slog. Um, Rather than, and again, I don't want to bash on the author too much, but rather than it feeling like actual human dialogue like some stories have, where I'm actually like invested in what they're saying, the dialogue in this book and the way things are described almost reminds me of like video game dialogue, like NPC, like if you ever talk to like an NPC in a video game, like in Skyrim or something, just like the way that they talk to you, that's sort of how it felt with like the characters talking to each other. Like emotion was described, but it wasn't like, I don't know, maybe I'm just being picky, but it just didn't feel like real. It just didn't connect with me like I feel like a lot of other books do with their dialogue. And it just felt stifled and just kind of like, I don't know. I hesitate to say the word cringy, but like it just felt very unnatural. However, I mean, there were moments in the book where it started to flow really well and I was latching on, and you know, I was enjoying the parts that I was reading, but then it would switch and then go back to being subpar. So, I mean, I know that Mr. Myers can write well when he wants to, but I feel like it was sort of inconsistent throughout this first book. And that definitely brought it down. One of the things, the biggest things that actually ended up irking me, was the amount of times characters will go to a restaurant and get food. Now, you know, little bits of slice in life here and there aren't bad, you know. But I swear it happens like 20 times where a character will go back and forth between a restaurant and work or whatever, and then there will be a whole drawn out scene of them ordering their food and having it made, or Dawn going back to her place to like make a salad or something. And it just got super repetitive. And there were parts where, and I didn't skip through any of this, but when those parts happened, I just wanted to skip through the scene. It happened way too many times. And, you know, we always wonder, you know, in our TV shows and our books and stuff, it's like, well, yeah, like, why are we, you know, maybe it would be interesting if we show off what they're actually doing on a day-to-day basis. When we read books and watch shows, we're only seeing the characters, like, as they're getting into the action and when important stuff's happening. What are they doing in their off time, you know? You know, when are they, like, going to take a shower or making food? And this is the reason why. It just is boring. You know, we find it intriguing, like what these characters would be doing, like their menial tasks throughout the day, as we do as humans. But in a narrative setting, It just doesn't work. And that's the reason why, typically stories don't include those aspects of your characters' lives. And this book, I think, is honestly a prime example of why that shouldn't be done. It becomes repetitive, and it really just slows everything down for no reason. Another issue I had was with the plot itself. The whole idea of this lunar assembly kind of thing is kind of ridiculous. The idea is that there's the people of the moon are supposed to vote in random people, not random people, but people from all walks of life to be a part of this, I don't know, what is it, 8 people or something, 10 people, this council, this assembly, to make the decisions for the people of the moon. But what's crazy to me is that the main character, she gets voted in. This is within the first few chapters, so I don't think it's really a spoiler, because it's the central part of this story. She's voted in as basically the prime minister or the president or whatever. She's the leader of this council, and she's just a normal chick. All she did was get into an accident that ended up with her in the hospital, and a meme got made of her, and now everybody voted her to be president. You know what I mean? In our real world, that would never happen. Who's voting in a meme? Obviously, I mean, we see jokes Kanye for president or whatever, but nobody's actually voting for just a random person just because a meme was made out of them. It's just so unrealistic. And our main character just being a normal chick, as far as we know at this point in the story, it just doesn't make any sense. And I feel honestly, she's what I would call a bit of a Mary Sue character, where it just seems for her being a normal chick, and for as much as she talks about herself just being normal and how she doesn't really want this job, she doesn't fail at anything, really. It almost seems she's just naturally good at almost everything, and you're a random chick and you became president. And not to mention, this Lunar Council, they basically have no limitations on their powers whatsoever. They're literally all 3 branches of government just round up in one. They can snap their fingers and literally anything can happen, because they have this all-powerful automated system that just does everything for them, and it's ridiculous. I mean, and maybe that's a part of obviously it's part of the world, but it just so unrealistic and just didn't make sense to me. It just felt way too convenient. And lastly, the last thing I'm going to talk about, which I think is probably one of the biggest issues that this book had, that really brought it down for me and made me throw up my hands and be what, was the fact that whenever we were rushing towards a climax of action, political intrigue, what's about to happen, it immediately gets solved, and the story goes this, goes up, and just straight down. That's how it felt to me. There were multiple moments in the story where there's, at the very, or near the end, there's a showdown with a certain somebody, and there's an attack or whatever, and they're trying to rescue people and stuff, and it's rushing towards this build up. They're oh shoot, what's gonna happen? And then the fight actually happens, and then it's over like that, and everything just seems to have been resolved with the snap of a finger, and it literally ended like that. Seriously, within maybe 20 pages, the whole conflict was over, and it didn't really have a payoff. And the same thing happened earlier in the book, where there was this looming threat from like out in space. There's like an enemy ship, like a corporation or whatever, and they were having dialogue between each other, and they were on the brink of starting an all-out war with like these corporations. And then what happens is, they just get turned away and they get sent home. Like, what? Like, that just ruined the whole conflict that's been building up, and then whoop, straight down. So, like, any time in this book that I had hope that we were getting to something actually exciting, it was just resolved instantly and killed all momentum that the story had. And then matched with other, menial aspects of the book, such as, like, the constantly getting food, the dialogue being unnatural. I mean, it just made for the whole experience, like I said, being a bit of a slog to get through. And however, there were ideas and aspects of it that I did like throughout. And I mean, I finished the book, so there had to have been something engaging about it. But I won't lie, it wasn't the easiest book to finish because of those aspects, sadly. And one of the things that I fear, if I wanted to move forward in this series, is I don't know if the series is actually going to get better, or if Mr. Myers actually improves as a writer throughout. Because as I understand it, and I could be wrong, but as I understand it, all three of these books, or four of these books in the series, were written like back to back to back to back. As at least that's how it seems when they were actually released. So I question whether or not Mr. Myers had enough time in between each book to actually improve upon his craft, or if each book in the series is just going to be a repeat of similar quality to this first book. We see authors take years in between books, and we can see improvements in the quality of their writing because they take the time to hone their craft. But if they're just written like right after each other, can we really expect to see that much of a change or an improvement? And that's the part that I'm scared about if I were to continue the series, is if I'm just going to be stuck reading another lackluster book like this. So all in all, I ended up giving the book, I think, what was it, 2.5 stars maybe? I don't know, I can't exactly remember. It was a lower score, sort of in the middle there. I didn't want to be too harsh, because there were aspects that I did enjoy. And again, I finished the book. It was interesting enough to keep me in it, but it was difficult enough to make me contemplate DNFing it at multiple points. But I ended up finishing it because I felt, I owed it to the author. I told him I'd read his book, give you guys a review, and I did. But yeah, I don't know that I will continue, sadly, but I encourage you guys to go check it out for yourself and let him know what you guys think. Again, I apologize if this video seems a little harsh. I just had to get my honest opinions out there. Yeah, I don't want to bash anybody, but there were some problems with this book that I had that really affected my reading experience. So I apologize. But yeah, that's going to be about it for today. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you guys do give the book a chance. If any of that sounded interesting to you, yeah, that would be awesome. If you guys did enjoy the video, though, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I would greatly appreciate it. And definitely go check out the official Discord server in the description below. We would love to have you. And yeah, guys, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.